You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be looking ahead to Arsenal versus Norwich. We're going to be reacting to Mikel Arteta's press conference, in which he discussed a number of topics, including the latest team news. He talked about Tomiyasu'S and the situation around his work permit. He talked about the possibility or the fact that the door is open to Jack Wilshere to come back and train with the club. We'll be talking about the fact he says there's no more excuses and now Arsenal have the tools they need to make things work. So plenty to get into during this episode. Big hello to everybody who's currently watching us live and to those of you who'll be watching or listening to this back later on. Hope you're all well. Sunshine's gone away here in London and I think it's going to be a little while before we get it back again, looking at the weather forecast. But it is what it is. The good news is that Premier League football is just around the corner again. Now, I know it's been a really, really difficult start to the season as Arsenal fans. In fact, it's been a horrible start to the season that, there's no getting around that. But it does really feel like now is the time for Arsenal to kickstart their season. Now, am I saying that what happened in the first 3 weeks was acceptable? Absolutely not. I expected Arsenal to at least have 3 points at this point, which is not many more than we've actually got. Big fat zero, but it's still more than zero. So look, I was looking at the fixtures at the start of the season, and again, people would take this as me excusing Arsenal for poor displays, poor performances. That is absolutely not what I'm doing. But it does feel like this is the point from which we can really try and kick on now. Almost kind of got to write off what happened previously and just move forward now, focus on Norwich, get 3 points against Norwich, go to Burnley, pick up another 3 points there. And if we can win the North London derby as well, off the back of that, we then play Brighton, which is another winnable fixture. And if Arsenal can amass 12 points, I know that's a big ask given what we've seen from Arsenal in the early stages of this season, but the outlook would be very, very different at that point. And I talked yesterday about how much, in my opinion, the kind of mood around football can swing so quickly. And if you could go on a 4-game winning streak now, then that would really turn things around. I know it's a big ask. I know it's a tall order, but they're not games that are impossible. Like, games that are impossible to me with this current Arsenal side are games like the one against Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea, European champions, games like going away to Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. I know we talked a lot about the decisions Mikel made, in that game and in the lead up to that game and how some of them proved to be wrong. Absolutely, they did. But losing that wasn't a disgrace. The way we did was the issue, I think, for a lot of people. So let's focus on the now. I know there's a lot of negativity around the club at the moment, and for good reason in the most part. But come on, let's focus on Norwich. Let's go out there. Let's get 3 points. Let's move on to Burnley. Let's take on Tottenham Hotspur in the derby. Hopefully pick up 3 points there in front of our own fans. And then we can look at that Brighton game. And all of a sudden, if we could pick up that run of results going into the next international break, as I say, the outlook can look very, very different. Andreas in the chat says, Harry, you seem happy. You must have had a few beers. I've actually had no beers today. I'm off to play football tonight. I play football on Thursday nights now, so no drinking. I had a beer last night when I was watching the football, but not today. Not yet anyway. Right, let's dive in then to Mikel Arteta's press conference, in which, as I say, he discussed a number of topics. Let me share the screen for those of you that are watching us via the video platforms. On the latest team news, he talked about a lot of people being back. He said that Thomas Partey's back. We know that Ben White's back. We know that Gabriel's back. Those are the significant ones. Talked about Serie Kolasinac being one of the doubts, and obviously Granit Xhaka's unavailable. He's still in Switzerland having contracted COVID, but of course he'll be serving that ban anyway following his sending off at Manchester City. If we take it a little bit further forward, I'm not going to go through every single question, right? Because it was a long podcast. podcast. I'm so obsessed with podcasts. It was a long press conference that Mikel Arteta gave, slightly longer than normal, actually, for the recorded part. Normally, they keep that quite condensed and then they do another bit for the written press. But I just wanted to kind of pick out the key points here, and then we can have a bit of a discussion around some of them. He was asked if the Norwich game is a must-win game, and he says it always is at Arsenal. The pressure is always there to be as high as possible in the league table. We need the first win, and we're going to play in front of our fans after a disappointing start. So it is down to us to provide everything we have performance-wise to earn the result that we want. So Mikel Arteta not shying away from that. He was asked on how important it is to deliver a good performance. So aside from the result, how important is it that Arsenal give a good performance? And he said he just wants to focus on the performance, because with that, more often than not, right, results will come. He said everybody talks about winning, but you have to earn the right to do that. And unfortunately, in the last 3 games, we've done basic things that haven't allowed us to win games like we'd want. If we do those things right, we'll be much closer to winning football matches, and that will bring momentum and change. Let's move a little bit further forward down the press conference. He was asked a little bit about the Ainsley MaitlandNiles situation. Now, remember, Ainsley MaitlandNiles made this really public plea, didn't he, to get out of the football club. So what exactly went on between Mikel Arteta and Ainsley MaitlandNiles? Well, just as we suspected, Mikel Arteta was not going to reveal all. He did say any private conversations with the player on the roles we believe he can have in the team are always discussed openly, but privately, if that makes sense. And that is how we resolved the matters. I'm happy he stayed. That was our intention. And he's another player in the squad. So Mikel Arteta refusing to be drawn on that. He was also asked about Takehiro Tomiyasu. Now, of course, he was due to return to London Colney today. That's Thursday. But there are concerns, or there were worries, about his work permit. Now, I haven't heard anything different since that press conference went out, but by the time this podcast reaches you, perhaps that situation may have changed or may have been resolved. But at the time of recording, Mikel Arteta made the point that Arsenal are still waiting on the work permit. He said the club is trying hard to achieve that in the next couple of hours. He's back in the country. I will meet him for the first time today, probably, and train with him, see how he is, and get a feel for it. He's been playing, so he should be completely fit. And yeah, we've been impressed. That's the reason we decided to sign him. Moving further on, he was asked about that vaccination question again, and that all stemmed from Granit Xhaka's post and Jose Mourinho commenting about, the fact that Granit Xhaka needs to get the vaccine. Look, I think we're heading in a direction now where without a vaccine, it's going to make your life really difficult. There are going to be limitations on travel and various other bits and pieces. But even though I think that people should get the vaccine, I appreciate that people have a different view on that, and people are entitled to have their own view on that. And Mikel Arteta also made that point. He made the point that, yeah, we're advising them that it's the thing to do, and that there will be limitations, restrictions in place as a result of players not doing it. However, it is a personal choice. And, I've got a lot of friends that don't want to do it. And that's their choice. My opinion is that you should, and that, there isn't enough to suggest that it is a problem, but it's your body. It's your, it's your property. You can do whatever the hell you want to do with it. And I think Mikel Arteta is in an awkward position here, because he keeps getting asked this question about whether players should all be vaccinated, whether that should be kind of enforced. But actually, that's stepping out of the realms of football, isn't it? It's a personal matter from which, is a personal matter in which you can't really push people to do something they don't want to do. He was asked a little bit about the changes to the squad. He said we have a completely different squad with a number of changes that you mentioned. You can tell that is unheard of. Now we have the tools. This is a key bit. Now we have the tools that we believe are going to give us the best opportunity to compete in the way we want and build what we want to build in this project. And now we have to make it work. We have to glide it together. I'm not sure he meant that, but we need to create relationships, chemistry, understanding, and we have to adapt, and we have to do that really quickly. So Mikel Arteta almost, waving away all the excuses there and saying, look, we've got what we needed. We've got what we wanted in the transfer market. Edu said it in his recent interview that Arsenal had done not quite 100%, but nearly 100% of the business that they wanted to do over the summer. Therefore, now's the time. Now's the time to judge. The transfer window's closed. The majority of our strongest team are available now, and we've got to push forward. You've got to expect from Arsenal now a significant improvement, a vast improvement that will see us over the next few weeks, hopefully push back up the table and get to somewhere a little bit more like where we want to end up, because being rock bottom of the league is not helping. It's not helping whatsoever. He was asked about Tomiyasu and the signing, and he talked a little bit about the fact that that he can play across the back line, which we all know, and he talks about the fact that he can give different qualities in that right back position as a player that we followed for a long time. He never said that Tomiyasu would be used as a centre back, because I know there's been a lot of debate about where exactly this guy's best position is, how exactly he'll fit into the team. And the fact that the way, if you actually watch or listen to the press conference, the way the question was put across was, what will he bring you at right back? And Mikel Arteta didn't deny that. So I think we can probably take from that yes, he can play all across the back line, but he has been brought in to play at right back, and that will be his primary position, which should hopefully settle that for a few people. Moving on, he was asked about Ainsley Maitland-Niles. He says he talked about Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and he talked about his versatility, because a lot has kind of been made of the Maitland-Niles situation. A lot of us have seen the interviews, read the interviews in the past where Ainsley Maitland-Niles has said, actually, I don't want to play as a fullback. I want to be a centre midfielder. It's largely why he chose to join West Bromwich Albion over a number of other sides who were interested at the time. And then this report came out, didn't it? As soon as Ainsley Maitland-Niles had made that public kind of cry out for help on social media when he wanted to leave the club, that actually, according to David Ornstein, he'd have been happy to play at right back all along. Mikel Arteta talked about his versatility. He says that he's got a unique quality in the sport. His versatility to play in many positions is that unique quality, and he needs to become the best at doing that, as it's something very rare in football, which, reading between the lines, suggests that Arsenal have had that conversation with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and that's the way they're going to proceed with him. So we've talked a lot in the last few days about whether him staying at the club means he is going to be given a shot in midfield. But looking at this today and listening to this today from Mikel Arteta, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It feels as though Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been told, listen, you're going to be the utility man. You're going to play on the right. You're going to play on the left. You're going to play in the middle, depending on what the squad needs. Don't know if Maitland-Niles will be particularly chuffed with that, but there you go. He was also asked about Reiss Nelson going out on loan. Of course, he's joined Dutch football. He says it's been a difficult year for him. He has enormous quality and he needs to show it. He's at the right age now to prove what he can do, and we wish him all the best. I guess the rest of it is pretty, I don't want to say insignificant, but I guess I just want to pick out a couple more points rather than kind of focusing in on every single question that he was asked. He was asked about Hector Bellerin, and this was one of the more interesting parts of the press conference, I felt. And we talked, didn't we, during the transfer window about the fact that I felt that if Arsenal got to the point of the end of the transfer window and nothing had come in that met the club's kind of, hopes for Hector Bellerin in terms of a fee, Arsenal would do the right thing and let Hector Bellerin leave. Now, why would Arsenal do that? Because he's been a good servant to the club for a number of years. A lot of fans are divided on Hector Bellerin. Some think he's great, some think he's awful. But the issue here is that his relationship with the club has always been very, very good. Okay. And for the club will not take fan opinion into account when making a decision like that. They will be taking into account how Hector Bellerin has operated as an Arsenal player for all of these years and the relationship that he currently has with them. And we knew that Hector Bellerin wanted to leave prior to this summer. We knew that Hector Bellerin wanted a new challenge. And Mikel Arteta basically confirmed that in Thursday's press conference when he said, he's been here a long time and he's been a really important part of everything that happened at the club in the last 10 years. He's an exceptional player, but an incredible person, and he will be missed. To find somebody like Hector is not easy. He's been raised here with us and he's loved by everyone at the football club. I have to say goodbye with sadness, but at the same time, I had to understand his position. He needed a new challenge. He's needed a new challenge for a while. And after discussing it for a long time, we decided to let him go because we believe it was the right thing for him as well. They tried to press Mikel Arteta on who the central defensive partnership would be. Would it be White and Gabriel? And he said they are one of the options. Didn't really give away too much more. Confirmed that Emil Smith-Rowe is carrying an illness and is a doubt for the Norwich game, but he did say we'll see how he goes in the next couple of days. And the final kind of point that I wanted to touch on from the press conference before we dive into some of your questions and thoughts in the chat box, which, by the way, get them in. Start popping them in now so that there's plenty for me to jump onto when we finish this little bit. He was asked about Jack Wilshere. Now, of course, Jack Wilshere is at a bit of a crossroads. You know, he's been training with Como in Italy, but they couldn't sign him because they didn't have any more foreign slots. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Arsenal potentially bringing Jack Wilshere back. Listen, I'm not a fan of the idea of bringing Jack Wilshere back as a player. It would be one done purely out of nostalgia rather than sense. That's not to say Jack Wilshere's a bad footballer. I genuinely and truly do believe that he was a very, very talented footballer. It's just fitness has been a big problem for him and it's hindered him in many, many ways. But I've got no objection to Jack Wilshere coming back and training with the club so that he can stay fit, so that he can, at least showcase himself to be training at a high level, with regards to getting any deals elsewhere. But Mikel Arteta was asked on that, and if there would ever be a chance of him training with Arsenal. He said, he's someone that I know, that I shared a dressing room with. He's so loved around the club with every person here. Our doors are always open. So Mikel Arteta making it clear he would have no objection and no issue with Jack Wilshere coming in to train at London Colney with the team. Right, there we go. That concludes the key points from Mikel Arteta's press conference today, given ahead of that visit of Norwich City this weekend. It's a massive, massive game for Arsenal. And we was on the 90 Min show, the gas tank, earlier on today. And I was asked if this was a relegation 6-pointer. And obviously, half of that question was posed to me in jest. And the other half was actually based on the fact that we are bottom of the league and, you know, we are playing another team that are around that part of the league. And my response, which I think was a fair response, was it's not a relegation 6-pointer, but it is a Mikel Arteta 6-pointer, i.e. it's a 6-pointer for Mikel Arteta, not because I actually fear Arsenal will be relegated this season. But Mikel Arteta is under a lot of pressure. And this is the kind of fixture that, however much goodwill you've got with the fans, which Mikel Arteta has very little of at the moment, you need to be winning. If you have aspirations of qualifying for Europe, of pushing the top 6, pushing the top 4 even, Arsenal need to be beating the likes of Norwich at home. I think in a lot of people's eyes, they are a team, you know, who could go down quite easily. I know they've had a decent summer in terms of transfers. I think they've reinvested some of the money that they brought in from Emi Buendia really well. But this is the kind of game that Arsenal simply have to win. There is no excuses. And that leads me quite nicely, actually, into Don Saki's question in the chat, where he says, I'm confident we beat Norwich, but I'm confident that we'll beat Norwich. But if we do lose to them, what would you do if you were the director of football in the club? I think if we lost to Norwich, then you'd have to sack him. You know, I think a lot of the plan that Arsenal have implemented this summer with regards to getting certain players out or trying to get certain players out, I know for a fact they would have liked to have done more of that, but they haven't. But the signings that they've done are the signings that fit the club's strategy, which is to build for the longer term future. And in many ways, a lot of those signings could prove to be good signings, regardless of whether Mikel Arteta is still at the helm. So players of that age, players of that profile, players on that wage are players who a new manager could come in and potentially work with. So I know I've said that I feel like Arsenal have backed him a lot not just in terms of what they've done in the transfer market with bringing people in, but backed his decision to terminate contracts of certain players that he felt were a problem in and around the dressing room, to send William Saliba out on loan again, despite Arsenal paying such a lot of money for him in the first place. I think that the club have backed Mikel Arteta in a lot of ways, not just in the transfer market, but in terms of some of the decisions he's made. And ultimately, you know, if we're being completely honest, there have been a lot of opportunities or moments where if he'd have been sacked, very few would have had anything to complain about. So I think they have backed him. I find it really difficult to get my head around this notion that if we lose one more game, he'll be sacked. But I feel like the opinion and the kind of, and to a degree as a football club, you got to be able to block out the noise when it's unjustified. But if we were to lose to Norwich, it'll be 4 defeats out of 4, 2 of which were against promoted sides. Then you would have to, you know, you'd have to seriously consider pulling the trigger. And I don't think, you know, you could defend a result like that. That's why I say it's a Mikel Arteta 6-pointer rather than a relegation 6-pointer. It really does feel like that to me at this moment in time. Let's move forward through the live chat box. Steve Stone says, Harry, if we fail to beat Norwich, do you feel the Burnley game will be too much of a mountain to climb off the back of it? Burnley are one of those sides that if we're at 100%, if we're performing to our level, we should beat them. We should have beaten them away at Turf Moor last season. Obviously, we made some stupid errors like we do so often. But we were the better team for the most part, and we came away without the desired result. So Burnley's one of those games where if you're at 100% and you take your opportunities, you beat them. And you beat them 9 times out of 10. But if you're even just slightly under par, just slightly below your maximum level, they are a side that can make football matches very, very difficult for you. You know, it's a trip up north. It's not the most kind of glamorous place in the Premier League. It's a very different challenge. You know, from a Sean Dyche side, you'll get a lot of commitment, a lot of energy, a lot of fight, a lot of battle. And Arsenal, in years gone by, have struggled to cope with those kinds of teams. So I think if we lost to Norwich, then, you know, obviously you'd go into that Burnley game and anything other than a win there to kind of turn it around, then, you know, adds pressure again. But it's not the kind of fixture you want to go in off the back of of dropping points at home to Norwich. Look, I don't think we are going to drop points. Okay, I really don't. So I'm not stressing about that. Matt G says, Harry, how many times this season do you think we'll say this is the most important game of our season? Yeah, a few. And I guess, look, Matt, the issue here is that we're coming into this off the back of 3 consecutive defeats. I think if Mikel Arteta goes on a run and picks up, you know, let's say for argument's sake, 4 wins on the spin, then all of a sudden that pressure is relieved. It doesn't completely go away, but it's relieved at least temporarily. And that means that there is, you know, people, if you win 4 games on the trot and then you go and draw your 5th one, nobody's going to say you should be sacked necessarily, because you'll look at the bigger picture. You'd like to think people would look at the bigger picture anyway. But that's where I'm at. I think there will be times where we say it is the biggest game of the season, but Mikel Arteta can stop that happening, and Arsenal can stop that happening by winning football matches a lot more frequently. Khalid says, did you see Matt Le Tissier's comments on Arsenal? Yeah, he talked, didn't he, about he talked about how the problem is not Mikel Arteta, that it's the players, it's the dressing room, and that he's heard that from a contact from a friend. Listen, I'm always wary of kind of believing stuff like that when it doesn't come from a particularly strong source. I mean, what's Matt Le Tissier got to do with Arsenal? And actually, do you know what? I met Matt Le Tissier once and I found him incredibly rude and cold. So he's not my favorite person in the world. He was a great player. I got a lot of respect for him as a footballer, but as a man, not a big fan. I've got to be honest. So, yeah. Let's see what else we've got here in the live chat box. Wow. Wow, massive super chat donation that from Jamal Abdul. He says, Harry, I'm a Chelsea fan. My question to you is, why did Arteta play Kolasinac at centre-back when KT should have been? Why was Lokonga your best midfield for the first 2 games? Dropped at City. Why has Arteta not decided on his best right-back, changing it? He has signed up to 23 players. He has signed up 23 players and Arsenal have got worse. First of all, Jamal, massive thank you for that donation, because that is a huge donation. If it was a mistake, if you meant to put £5 instead of £50, please hit me up on Twitter at Harry Symeou, and I'll sort that out for you. If that was the case, if it isn't a mistake, thank you so much. I appreciate any donation anyway, but like, when people make donations like that, I feel a little bit like, whoa, like a little bit uneasy, maybe that maybe it was a mistake. And if it is, I don't want you to be embarrassed to come and tell me, and I will sort that out for you. But thank you so much, and lots of good points there. You know, the Kolasinac thing baffled a lot of us, didn't it? Lokonga being left out baffled us, but I guess that was due to the game plan of putting Odegaard in that deeper position. Didn't work, but there was obviously a method to that bit of Mikel Arteta's madness. The right back thing, you know, I think he's got his right back now in Tomiyasu'S, which would be class. And I agree. Look, we've brought in a lot of players, and the improvement hasn't really been there. It's been a big turnaround of players, and Mikel Arteta talked about that today, didn't he, in his press conference? Which is fantastic. I say fantastic, but you know, it's good to hear that, you know, Arsenal recognise that they've turned over a lot of players and that they've got a big problem, or that they've had problems in managing that huge turnover and also keeping the level of the squad, you know, at or keeping the level of performance where it needs to be. Stephen Jacob says, hi, Harry, love your content from Melbourne, Australia. Big shout out to all our Australian viewers and listeners. He says, what's our chances this season, top 6 or top 10? I think we could finish in the top 6. I still think it's possible, but there is obviously far less room for error than there was at the start of the season, because we've already lost 3 games. But it's a very competitive Premier League. There'll be a lot of clubs in that race that will take points off of each other. And if Arsenal can find any sort of consistency like we found in the second half of last season, I know in a lot of people's eyes it still wasn't good enough. But when you looked at that table in the second half of the season, I know you're probably sick to death of hearing about this. Arsenal were one of the best performing sides in the PL. So if we could manage or maintain that level for at least, you know, we did it for half the season. If we could do it for 2/3 of the season this time, then we stand in really good stead, or you know, we stand a great chance, of achieving that. Let's see what else we've got here. Everybody giving a big shout out to Jamal. Respect to Jamal. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. What else have we got? Let me just pick up a question from Andreas, who says, why was Mavropanos not given a chance, or has he not been given a chance? It's a hard one, that, for me, because when I think about what he's shown in his career so far, I don't have confidence that he is going to go on to be a Premier League level defender. And it's not just about being a Premier League level defender. It's about being an elite Premier League level defender, because that's what we're aspiring to. I think he's a decent player. You know, I think he's a little bit raw. I think he's your typical Greek defender, if that makes sense. He is somebody who is physical, is strong, is committed, but lacks technical ability. I don't think he's very good at bringing the ball out. I don't think he's very good at playing progressive passes. And those are the things that I just don't feel fit in with what it is Mikel Arteta is trying to do. He's not someone who's worth an incredible amount of money. I'd still, like, if you look at him now in comparison to our centre-backs currently, I don't think he's Gabriel level. I don't think he's Ben White level. I wouldn't even put him at Rob Holding level in terms of trusting him in a big game. And, you know, then if you're loaning out Saliba, how do you justify him coming in? So I understand why Arsenal have let him go to Stuttgart. It looks like that deal is going to become permanent. He's a player that Sven Mislintat loved anyway, and he's got the opportunity now to have him at Stuttgart. So I just think it's a good move for everybody. Jamal responding says, thank you, chat. I'm not rich. It's something I've wanted to do for Harry. Unfortunately, not enough characters to write my full question, so 50 quid to do it. So be it. Mate, I had no idea that the value of your super chat dictates how many characters you're allowed to write. But mate, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, it means the world to me. And you guys supporting the channel and supporting the podcast, whether it be via super chats, whether it be via the membership, whether it be by simply hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel, is why I'm able to commit so much time to this podcast, because I've got that support, which as a freelancer gives me that little bit more freedom, doesn't it? Because I'm having to spend less time doing other work or looking for other work, or making sure that I'm kind of keeping people happy. Whereas for me, this is my passion project. The Chronicles of a Gooner is what I want to do. That this is my thing, my baby, my project, and I don't want to do other things if I can help it. I like doing some other things, of course, but this is for me what I want to be my bread and butter. So donations like that, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and don't expect, by the way, really make a difference. So thank you so much, mate. Thank you. Right, just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, because there's nearly 300 of you watching us live at the moment, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Want to get to 16.5k on YouTube ASAP. We've got 70 likes on the board now. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get that up to 100, because there is more than enough of you watching. In fact, we should be exceeding that. So yeah, get involved, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Jay Judas says, what's your starting 11 against Norwich? Well, I'm not going to reveal that, because that would spoil my show tomorrow, which is going to be my 11 and prediction and thoughts ahead of that big game against Norwich City. I feel weird as an Arsenal fan saying the big game against Norwich City, but it really is a big game for Mikel Arteta. It's a really big game for the fans. We've had a couple of weeks off to kind of mull over what's happened in the first half of the first few games of the season. I normally don't like doing I normally don't like international breaks, is the point I'm trying to get to. It's confused. Sometimes I start reading the comments and I lose my trail of thought. I don't like international breaks ordinarily, but in this instance, it's given Arsenal the opportunity to to get players back, to take stock, and to hopefully bounce back stronger. So fingers crossed, we'll see the benefits of that. It has been difficult from a content perspective, but it's also been difficult because we ended it on such a negative with that game against Man City, that you've almost had loads of time to talk about it, think about it, and almost wind yourself up to almost in many ways make the situation seem worse than it actually is. But yeah, thank you for your question, mate. Stay tuned. Be bringing you that tomorrow. Lompri says, will you be making more appearances on AFTV? So I did a little interview with Robbie the other day on Robbie's press pass section, which is only on AFTV VIP. It's a completely separate show, and it is one where he talks to journalists. And Robbie asked me to go on it. And listen, look, in the past, I've not always been a big fan of some of the content that AFTV have put out. I still think some of it could be better. I still think some of it could be improved, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I would say it to Robbie, because he's that kind of guy. He's a good guy. He'll listen, and even if he doesn't agree, I'm sure he takes all feedback on board. But for me, I think it's really important at a time like this to be getting those messages across, to be not telling people what they should think, but to try and put some of the fires out in and around the fan base, because I do feel like we've turned the situation, although it's bad, into a worse one than it actually is. And I think the constant negative rhetoric around Arsenal Football Club, I don't know about you guys, but it affects my enjoyment of following the football club. And then when I'm celebrating goals not because I'm happy, because I'm basically wanting to tell the people that have nothing better to do in life than complain where to stick it. So I think it's important that platforms like that, which is massive and has a massive influence. A lot of people don't watch it at all, and there are a lot of people that do watch it. And I think a platform like that has a responsibility, given its size, to present different points of view, and sometimes more balanced points of view. So that's where I am on that. And look, if I get asked to go on again and it's not shouting and it's talking and it's like that, I'm happy to do it. I am happy to do it. Let's take this one from Zoxolo Radu. Have I said that, mate? I'm so sorry if I've said your name wrong. Joining us from South Africa. Says, great work you are doing, Harry. Objectivism, can't even speak. With love from South Africa. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate your kind words. Afsar says, Harry, there is nothing to enjoy about watching Arsenal. Yeah, look, there isn't at the moment, okay? But it's part of being a football fan. There are ups and there are downs. I'm spoiled. I got to watch Arsenal in the peak of their powers when I was growing up. I got to go into school every single Monday, pretty much, with a big grin on my face and take the piss out of everybody else. And now the shoe is on the other foot. Now things are different. Arsenal are struggling. Football happens in cycles, and your love for your club that you build up over a long time never disappears. It shouldn't disappear anyway. And yeah, there will be turbulent periods. This is certainly one of them. But, you know, if, as I was saying to the guys on 90 Min earlier today, if you don't go to a football match with some optimism or positivity around what you might see, then what is the point in going? It's almost like, if I woke up on Saturday with the viewpoint of, oh, we're going to get battered and this is going to be a miserable day, then what would be the point in me going? Like, football is, as important as it is, football is a game and it is a hobby for us. And it is something that I'm lucky enough has become part of my livelihood, but I still, and I think I've done this a little bit more in the last year or so, where I have been working so much more around football. I've kind of gone, actually, yes, this is my job now. Yes, it matters and it should matter. And I care deeply about Arsenal's fortunes. But if I'm always in a negative mindset, then why am I actually going? It's not any enjoyment to me. And look, we can be negative after a game. You get beaten embarrassingly, you'll be disappointed, you'll be frustrated. But I can't get my head around people that will turn up to the Emirates on Saturday with that negative mindset. If that's the case, why are you going? I look forward to going to Arsenal all week. And I know there are lots of dedicated fans across the globe that don't have that luxury of being able to get in the car, going down the road 15, 20 minutes and being at Emirates. So I appreciate that and I value that. And I see, you know, and I see the positive side of it, at least before the game. After the game is a different kettle of fish. But if you don't have that positivity or that positive mindset, and it's not something you want to do, and it's not something you enjoy, what the hell are you wasting your time for? That's the way I see it. Let's say, just before we go, a massive welcome to Tissier May, who's just signed up to be a member of the channel. Tissier, thank you so much, mate. Make sure you click in the community tab and get the link to the Discord server. Come and join us over there for some Arsenal chat. There's some brilliant people in there as well. So yeah, looking forward to interacting with you over there. Big thank you to Francis as well, who says, thanks for the balanced view. A section of the fans, unfortunately, have been caught in a cycle of negativity. Yeah, and look, it's not even just a thing exclusive to Arsenal fans, right? It's the way of the world nowadays. I hate it. It's like, you know, it's like every subject has to be so divisive. There has to be one extreme or the other, and there is no middle ground anymore. And people just talk to each other like shit on social media in the way, you know, in the way that you would never talk to each other in person. And that for me is wrong. It is really wrong. Another super chat, which I have to pick up before we jump off. Tom, thank you so much, mate, for your very kind donation. Really appreciate it. He says, unsolicited feedback / advice. I can see you and Tom at the Gooner Talk collaborating ongoing, much like Gunner Blog and Arse Blog. I already have you two as my go-to for rational discussions on the Arsenal. Massive fan of the work Tom does. And when we do get the opportunity, we do stuff together, which is fantastic. And fingers crossed we can do a little bit more of that over the course of this season. So thank you, Tom. Really, really appreciate the donation and the feedback and the advice. And we'll make sure that we get you some more content across both channels over the rest of the season. Right, I am going to leave it there because I'm on babysitting duty until I go to football later on. So probably be more tired from that than running around for an hour, but it is what it is. It's father duties. What can you do? I'll catch you all very, very soon with some more Arsenal-related content. We'll be back tomorrow with our lunchtime stream, and we shall be looking ahead to that Norwich game. I'll be giving you my 11, the 11 that I think Mikel Arteta might pick, and we'll be talking a little bit about how that game might go. Until then, take care of yourselves. Enjoy your Thursday evening, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.